Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we are still waiting for the quorum. We do not have all committee members. We need at least 11 committee members to establish the quorum so that we can start. Please be seated in your designated places so that we can count again. Thank you very much.
That was a good information. Thank you, Mr. Rao. And thank you, everybody, for attending this session. Before I continue with the discussion of 5B, I would like to inform you. I have been informed that papers are being distributed in the plenary room, which causes a lot of disturbance and confusion with the working documents. I would request all concerned to not distribute such documents. They may contact the Secretariat if there are some specific documents for distribution, or to do the distribution outside the working areas. Please obey that. And I say this to all observer groups. Yeah? Fine, thank you. Now we continue, and I think it was Mongolia? Yes, Mongolia, yeah? Is Mongolia here? No, they're not there. It isn't? No. Joking. So, because Mongolia isn't here, I would like to give the floor to ICROM. Mr. King, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Actually, I don't have too much to say at this point. The one point that I did want to raise is the Philippines asked a question specifically about the capacity building program and online, sort of online training activities. And I would ask, especially given our time constraints at the moment, there will be a presentation on item 6 on capacity building, which will be coming later on this afternoon. It's the last item on the agenda this afternoon. So if the Philippines is willing to wait until later on this afternoon, I think it would make more sense to answer that question then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. So we can now turn to IUCN, and that means I will invite Tim Batman to take the floor on this subject. Please, Tim.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. At the outset of our report, I'd like to relay the good wishes of IUCN's new Director General, Madam Inger Andersen, to you and to the committee and all participants. Inger Andersen took up her work in January of this year in IUCN and is unfortunately not able to join the committee this year due to a prior commitment. But she's asked me to relay her strong and continued commitment to World Heritage, building on the legacy of her predecessor, Julia Marton-Lefebvre, and looks forward to the earliest opportunity to engage with the committee and the parties to discuss her and your ideas for the future of the convention and IUCN's work within it. Our report is set out in the working document, and I'd just like to elaborate on a few points within it. Firstly, on the additional commitment that IUCN is making to World Heritage. Following the evaluation of the IUCN World Heritage Programme in 2014 that we reported to you last year, we've increased the funding that we make available within IUCN to support our work on World Heritage starting from January this year. This will enable us to regionalise our conservation team, and that's a process starting at this committee, following the recruitment of an additional monitoring officer, bringing our conservation team to 3 staff. Please take time to meet the team while they are all here. Please discuss with them your issues and concerns and how we can take steps together. We also, I would just like to mention, have both of the directors of our 2 European regions who will be with us at various parts of this meeting, Luc Bass and Boris Erg, so also please do take the opportunity to connect with them. We've also secured welcome and continued support from the MAVA Foundation, our long-standing partner for the IUCN World Heritage Outlook. The World Heritage Outlook, which is delivered in partnership with our World Commission on Protected Areas, is IUCN's platform for engaging across our network of over 1,000 state and civil society members, our 10,000 strong expert commission network, and with the broader World Heritage community to take new and proactive approaches to supporting natural World Heritage sites to achieve conservation success. This work is also strengthening our work with you by gathering better data, and it provides transparent online access to the information that we have on which we're basing our monitoring. You'll recall the launch of the World Heritage Outlook that was made at the committee by us last year. It concludes that 63% of the natural World Heritage sites have a good outlook according to the 2014 assessment, and that's a positive result and indicates the potential for World Heritage to give the leadership it is expected to wider conservation efforts. But the fact that not all sites have a good outlook shows the challenge to raise performance and to achieve success across the whole of the World Heritage Convention. And we'll make the next World Heritage Outlook assessment in 2017. I should note, though, that this new funding, all of this new funding, is not available to support directly statutory work that you request, so the continued budget pressures in UNESCO and on the World Heritage Fund remain a serious concern for our work in supporting your business, and clearly that's something we'll discuss in the item on the budget and with the working group. IUCN held the World Parks Congress in Sydney, Australia in November 2014, a major global event attended by over 6,000 people from over 170 countries. I'd like to draw particular attention of the committee and all those present to the outcome document from this event, The Promise of Sydney. We see this as a benchmark statement for the next decade, and it notes a number of issues that the convention needs to fully address to maintain and to restore its credibility. The convention is a litmus test of whether global conservation efforts are succeeding, and the link to the Promise of Sydney is in our report. We'll also present the outcomes from the World Parks Congress in a side event being run on the 2nd of July. If I can just close with 2 points. The first is to return to the issue that was raised by Mr. Aroz from ICOMOS, and which I covered to some degree in our presentation in the orientation session yesterday, but which is to really thank the committee and the states parties for the strengthened dialogue that we've been able to achieve in the last year, and in particular what has happened through the work of the ad hoc working group chaired by the chairperson, and also a range of interactions through the upstream process. I think the ad hoc working group in particular has been vital for us to be able to have a small group to work together on solutions, because we've been discussing the problems for several years, but in large rooms, and it's only when you have a small group you can try to focus on how we can move forward. And we've been pleased that process is moving forward. We'll look forward to discussing next steps with you. I think now with the actions reported by ICOMOS, we have a very consistent set of approaches between IUCN and ICOMOS on matters of transparency and consultation, and we will continue to implement changes, provided they're ones which we can see are ones that respect our independent role in the convention, that they will enable all states parties and all stakeholders to have an equal level of service and respect in the process, and that they're going to be practically achievable within the time and resources that we know are limited. I'd like to thank, in particular, some states parties, Germany, Norway, Switzerland and the Republic of Korea, who've engaged with us directly in supporting projects that we've launched through this year or have had ongoing. And the last point is I'd just like to recall the proposal that was made by the IUCN Director General at the committee last year regarding a key point that IUCN considers is a point for reform in the convention, which is the proposal we've made to move to a 2-year cycle of committee meetings. And we're pleased this will be discussed at a later point on the agenda. No other intergovernmental process we work with has such an intense rhythm of meetings as this convention. And really, we feel the frequency with which the committee meets reduces our ability to follow up with regard to results on the ground. So we would, in closing, reiterate the need to use our limited resources to prioritise the support that's needed to states parties, the extra dialogue that's needed, and the direct support needed by World Heritage sites, and to consider changing from an annual to a once every 2 years committee cycle. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Tim Badman, for this presentation. And now I'd like to ask, are there any comments? I see Colombia and Germany as well. And India? So, first, Colombia has the floor, please.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Colombia quiere felicitar y hacer un reconocimiento especial a la UICN por el exitoso lanzamiento de la plataforma World Heritage Conservation Outlook, la cual pone a disposición del público información sobre avances, herramientas disponibles para la elaboración de documentos y sobre todo nuevas y latentes oportunidades y desafíos para los sitios Patrimonio de la Humanidad, e invitamos a los países a utilizar esta herramienta tan valiosa. Asimismo, queremos respaldar la solicitud de la UICN en el sentido de la necesidad de un mayor apoyo financiero para aumentar la red de expertos y en general para apoyar y fortalecer las actividades de la organización, ya que el fortalecimiento de la UICN, así como los otros dos organismos asesores, son la garantía del rigor técnico de la implementación de la Convención. Nosotros, por eso, apoyamos el respaldo que se le dé a esta solicitud, porque necesitamos los países de unos organismos técnicos fuertes y con posibilidades de responder a las necesidades con rigor técnico y en beneficio, como digo, de los sitios Patrimonio de la Humanidad. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you. Now, India. Oh, no, excuse me. Is it India or Germany?
India.
India. India. Please, India has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as India is concerned, along the line of our I'm forgetting the word. Along the line of what we said in the afternoon, we would like to state that we appreciate the good work that has been done by the advisory bodies. There has been an enhancement in terms of the dialogue and consultation process, and we ourselves have been the immediate beneficiaries of that. So that is a point that we would like to put firmly on the table. Apart from that, we have noticed and we observe that we do need an update on the status of revision of the gap analysis, especially by ICOMOS, which is somewhat overdue since the last one was prepared in 2004. As far as the IUCN is concerned, we would certainly like to compliment them, especially for bringing out 2 technical documents dealing with gap analysis in both terrestrial and marine ecosystems, which provide a broad framework for inscription of new sites to plug the perceived gaps. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And now, Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We join the 2 speakers from Colombia and India and in thanking the advisory bodies for their comprehensive reports. And we certainly appreciate the ongoing dialogue and input from the advisory bodies, especially in the framework of the ad hoc working group. We take note of the growing workload of the advisory bodies, which this dialogue obviously brings with it, and the still restricted financial resources. In addition to some of the projects and outcomes mentioned by IUCN, we would like to draw your attention to the newly published study on benefits of natural heritage sites, which has been mentioned in IUCN's written report. And we invite you to join us on a site event on 4th of July at 1:15 p.m. when the study will be presented. And we certainly believe that it's not only talking about threats and negative impacts, but also about the positive impacts and benefits these sites bring to humankind. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I have 2 on the list, 2 speakers, Korea and then Senegal. Korea has the floor. And Croatia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Republic of Korea would like to thank you all three advisory bodies for their hard work, above all regarding the capacity building training of ICROM and the importance that IUCN and e-commerce place on the upstream process. Especially the Republic of Korea welcomes the IUCN and e-commerce's initiative for building a mutual good relationship as demonstrated in the connecting practices. The connecting practices is worth drawing more attention because mixed property and cultural landscape are becoming more important in heritage discussion, and also this phenomenon requires more harmonization of the IUCN and e-commerce's evaluation process. While noting the connecting of culture and nature is a very unique feature of this convention, we cannot deny that this connecting practice is already embedded in national practices in many countries, even though it is not explicitly spelled out in their system. The Republic of Korea is one of those countries. In this regard, the Republic of Korea is interested in sharing such experiences in order to contribute to the development of the connecting practices and hopes to have constructive future dialogues with the advisory bodies in this respect. In closing, let me introduce another coordinating effort from Korea. The Republic of Korea hosted a coordinating meeting among NAMSA, MAB, Geopark, and WHC for the protection of natural heritage in the Jeju Island in the past April. The Republic of Korea will make a continuous effort to enhance alignments among related organizations in the context of World Heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor, Senegal has the floor.
Alors, merci Madame la Présidente. Nous remercions bien sûr les organisations consultatives pour le travail remarquable qu'elles font sur le terrain et nous les croisons tous les jours. Nous pensons au regard de ce qui se passe, surtout au niveau du groupe Afrique, qu'il y a encore des efforts à faire au niveau de toutes les organisations consultatives pour le processus en amont. Ce ne sont pas seulement les listes indicatives, mais l'accompagnement dans tout le processus de l'identification jusqu'à la préparation des dossiers pour éviter toutes ces questions de cartes et autres dont on parle. Nous pensons aussi que pour éviter des retours fréquents sur les listes de patrimoine en péril hors conflit, il faut certainement que l'accompagnement soit encore plus serré et cela va jusqu'au renforcement des capacités. Ceci dit, nous pensons qu'il y a un problème quand même pour l'Afrique. Et nous ne pensons pas que ce soit un problème de VUE, mais peut-être un problème de méthodologie. Nous pensons que les organisations consultatives doivent beaucoup réfléchir sur leur méthodologie, et nous avec elles, parce que nous pensons qu'il y a une espèce de fixation sur le trépied de la VUE que M. Djokir nous a présenté hier. Nous pensons qu'un trépied est par définition un organisme très instable. Il faut peut-être que la VUE soit plutôt un quadrupède. Il sera beaucoup plus sûr dans cette démarche. Donc nous pensons qu'il faut ouvrir le débat sur les orientations afin que les organisations consultatives essaient de changer leur méthode. Nous pensons que si vous continuez à réfléchir et à agir simplement à partir de ce trépied, vous condamnez par avance la plupart des pays qui n'ont pas les moyens de faire des aménagements que vous estimez adéquats. Et tant que ces aménagements ne sont pas faits, les sites ne sont pas classés, ils ne sont pas classés, les valeurs universelles exceptionnelles, à notre avis, se dégradent. Il faut déconnecter absolument la valeur universelle exceptionnelle, qui est une catégorie reconnue, de la façon de gérer cette catégorie-là. Nous pensons qu'une fois qu'une valeur universelle en termes de catégorie est reconnue, la gestion devient un problème secondaire et peut-être l'affaire de toute la communauté parce que c'est une valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Donc nous pensons que tant que vous continuez à agir, critères, gestion, sauvegarde, vous allez condamner les pays qui n'ont pas les moyens d'agir comme vous le souhaitez. Merci.
And now Croatia has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me take this opportunity to express our gratitude to the whole work of IUCN and the expertal help to not only members of IUCN but all countries that are members of the convention. In our history of being member of the convention, we have experienced many instruments of this convention, and in all these cases we are very grateful for all suggestions and advices given to our management authorities. Let us also highlight it that all knowledge that we have in management of protected areas are also shared with our colleagues in sector of culture, and they really appreciate this knowledge, especially in the preparation of management plans. Let us say that we are also aware of financial restrictions, not only in international organizations, but also in our region of Southeastern Europe, and therefore we are taking every opportunity to discuss about protection of World Heritage Sites in our regional meetings, and we are also in very good cooperation with the IUCN office in Belgrade. It must be said that there was a great effort to prepare a World Heritage Outlook, and it's a great tool to show good and bad sides of each site, and of course a very good overview for each site to improve its performance in management. Just a small thanks to Germany to organize workshop on highlighting benefits of natural World Heritage sites, and we really think that it will help us, of course, in our management of the World Heritage sites in Croatia. Especially it is concerned by natural resources. Natural resources are also in concern in all other cultural sites. Therefore, it's a very good, very important role of IUCN to highlight whether the ecosystem is properly managed even in cultural sites. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other comment, I think. No. So I'd like to give the floor again to Tim Batman. Who? Algeria. Algeria, sorry. So first, Algeria has the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La délégation algérienne, qui reconnaît l'apport significatif des 3 organisations consultatives, salue les efforts consentis par ces organisations pour une plus grande coordination et une meilleure concertation raisonnée entre les organisations elles-mêmes, entre elles, et d'une part, et les États d'autre part, et entre elles et les États d'autre part. Nous les remercions pour leur disponibilité et leur collaboration constante pour une meilleure prise en charge du patrimoine culturel mondial, et nous espérons énormément du groupe de travail qui va être mis en place pour aplanir toutes les interprétations qu'on aurait pu faire auparavant. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Look around. Any comments? No. So now it's up to Tim Batman.
So, thank you, Chair. I didn't detect many questions, but a number of comments, and I'll just respond just briefly to a few points. The first is thanks for the number of observations about some of the products that we've issued, the gap studies, the work that's been done on benefits, which I really think is a seminal piece of work which helps us to think differently and more largely about the purposes of World Heritage Sites. But we think those will also come up in some of the other items, and they're relevant to other parts of the committee's agenda. So we will talk to some of those items later on in the meeting. In terms of the outlook, it's great to have the positive feedback from committee members, and we greatly appreciate that. I think it's important to emphasize that for us, apart from having a system which is measuring progress towards good and something that can be repeated on a regular basis, we think it's also a tool that we're hoping that all of our constituency will engage in a new and different way with World Heritage, to think how each different part of IUCN can provide more support to World Heritage, can make World Heritage more relevant in its work. So I'd just like to emphasize that part of the World Heritage Outlook that's really about trying to catalyze action. And then in terms of the other comments, and if I may just address a couple of the comments that were made before lunchtime that were addressed to all of the three advisory bodies. I think just a brief response to Senegal on the points that are raised. I mean, I think we take all of the points around looking at the question of values of sites in Africa and the approaches that are being taken, and certainly fully agree that the list of sites in danger is a priority which we really need to re-establish as the most urgent priority for the convention. But I think if you think about the nominations point, really this year shows a continuing pattern of just a very small number. We saw only 5 nominations made from Africa, and only 1 is complete. So I think, apart from thinking through questions of what are the priorities, really we have an issue which is just to ensure that there is an intake of nominations which is one that does justice to the wish to see a balanced and representative World Heritage List. And a number of the comments that were made under item 5A are ones that IUCN would fully subscribe to, from parties pointing out really the challenge we have to achieve a balanced list. And other than that, if I can just return, I thought, to 2 really important ideas that were made before the break. The idea from Turkey to combine the committee meeting with capacity building activities would be, I think, a really good way to make the opportunity that we're all together much more productive for a wider range of purposes. We do run the advisory body's space for side events, which Ikram mentioned, but I think we could foresee a much richer range of parallel events and surgeries and training activities, and I'd really welcome the opportunity to talk through that idea further. And the other is a very practical idea, which I think, if my notes serve me correctly, was made by Portugal, about the opportunity for having the space that ICOMOS has in Paris available. I'd really like to thank ICOMOS for inviting us to join the meeting that they held, but I think the fact ICOMOS now has an office which has got a good meeting room and it's so easy to get to from UNESCO really gives us the opportunity to come together and just talk about issues in a very convenient way. And I'd echo Portugal's invitation for ICOMOS to repeat that event, and we'd be certainly very keen to make that happen and see how else we could make training, capacity building, just discussions about doing the work better, much more accessible between us and all of you as states parties and other actors in the convention. Thank you, Madam Chair. If I missed any questions, my apologies, but I think that covers the main comments and questions that were made. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Tim Badman, not only for your explanations, but for the whole work of IUCN. And I think it's a very good message that the cooperation between the advisory groups and, of course, of all those here in the room is improving. And that's a process which has to continue. Thank you so much. I would like to remind you that we are also invited to adopt the draft decision 39, column 5B, included point 4 of the document you have in front of you. Yeah. I would like to ask the rapporteur if he has received any amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, we haven't received any amendment. Thank you.
Fine. So, if you have no amendments, and I see no observations or comments, I therefore declare draft decision 39, 5B adopted. Fine. And we continue. The time has come now to examine our next agenda item, item 5C, which corresponds to the follow-up of the Director General's initiative, the World Heritage Convention, Thinking Ahead. I invite to consider document 5C as reference of our debate. I also would like to invite Mr. Rao to briefly present this document. Mr. Rao, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indeed, I will be very brief in this document because there are linkages to other working documents which you will be examining during the session. This item essentially deals with the initiative that the Director General launched in October 2012, and ever since, the committee and the General Assembly both have been regularly following the progress that is being achieved in the implementation of the various recommendations that you as member states and committee members had made during these meetings. The main issues relate to the whole process of tentative list, nominations, state of conservation reports, the working methods of the World Heritage Committee, as well as budgetary matters. Now, as you are aware, all these issues are going to be discussed at this committee under different items. You have already considered document 5E, which deals with the recommendations of the external auditor on the global strategy. There is a document which will deal with the upstream process, which is document 9A. Revisions to the operational guidelines will be in document 11, and the report of the ad hoc working group, which is document 13A and will be presented a little while later by the chairperson, also deals with the whole issue of nominations. Therefore, Madam Chair, I will not go into the details of this document, just highlighting the fact that all these issues are going to be dealt with elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. I'd like to open the floor for comments on these subjects. Are there any comments? Philippines? Yeah. And Poland? And here, Japan? Finland? So let's start. First, give the floor to the Philippines.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. We thank the Director General for her initiative on the World Heritage Convention, Thinking Ahead. We take note of the report which highlights key issues raised during relevant meetings. The G77 and China attach great importance to the World Heritage Convention. We believe culture is a driver of sustainable development which can contribute to poverty alleviation and inclusive growth, helping developing countries overcome challenges to sustainable development. To this end, the G77 and China supported the inclusion of a specific target to strengthen efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage in the proposed post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals. This is especially relevant in view of the disturbing and tragic events happening around the globe. We wish to take this opportunity to express our deep concern over attacks on cultural heritage sites in Iraq, Syria, Tunisia, Libya, Yemen, and Mali. We applaud UNESCO's Unite for Heritage campaign in this regard. We also wish to express solidarity with the people and government of Nepal in the aftermath of the earthquakes, which have caused tremendous loss of lives and severe damage to World Heritage sites. It is incumbent on the World Heritage Committee and the international community to do all it can to support countries like Nepal in such times of need in case of natural catastrophes increasingly frequent due to climate change. We believe that capacity building and technical assistance must be urgently strengthened, not only for protection of World Heritage sites, but to improve developing and least developing countries' participation in the activities of the Convention for their benefit and sustainable development. The perspectives and procedures of the advisory bodies must be transparent, inclusive, more outward-looking, and diversified. Avenues for South-South cooperation must likewise be expanded. In this regard, we welcome the recent changes adopted by the advisory bodies in their evaluation processes with a view to enhancing communication and dialogue with concerned states parties. We hope that this communication and dialogue process will be further strengthened and institutionalized through appropriate mechanisms such as the operational guidelines of the World Heritage Convention, among others. We therefore reiterate the importance of achieving a representative, balanced, and credible World Heritage List in line with the global strategy and key tools, such as the upstream process. This should be done by promoting expertise and capacity in developing countries so that more comprehensive nomination dossiers can be submitted from the South, reflecting the true diversity and richness of World Heritage. The upstream process is very valuable in this connection. We also see the new electoral system based on equitable geographic distribution adopted by the extraordinary session of the General Assembly of States Parties in 2014 as an improvement which should pave the way for further progress. Given these imperatives, we share the concern over the financial status of the World Heritage Fund. We call for increased financial support for the Convention. Following the spirit of universality of the Convention, we do not believe mandatory fees for nominations would be appropriate, as this perpetuates the imbalance we experience. Other innovative approaches, such as awareness raising and developing international partnerships for World Heritage, can be explored. We also look positively on UNESCO's work to reinforce and adapt all conventions to new challenges and obstacles generated by actual contexts, developing appropriate synergies between the World Heritage Convention and other cultural conventions, such as the 1954 Hague Convention, as well as the 1970 Illicit Trafficking Convention and its new operational guidelines recently approved. In conclusion, Madam Chairperson, the G77 and China will continue to support a more balanced and credible World Heritage List and a strong committee in order to increase the Convention's relevance for developing and least developing countries and promote equitable and inclusive sustainable development. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I have now 5 speakers on my list. Poland. Poland has the floor. One more.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 40th anniversary of the World Heritage Convention was accompanied by much strategic discussion regarding the future of the Convention. These discussions found a recapitulation in the elaborated documents, among others the Strategic Action Plan for the implementation of the World Heritage Convention 2012-2022, and the continuation in the initiative of the UNESCO Director General World Heritage Convention, Thinking Ahead. In the framework of this initiative, the Director General and the Committee ask all stakeholders to pursue efforts to enhance and facilitate dialogue, communication, and transparency in all processes of the Convention. Work in this direction is being carried out, and we are very pleased to say that the effects of this work are visible in many areas. We would like to take this occasion to thank the World Heritage Center and also to extend our gratitude to the advisory bodies for their professionalism and commitment, and for seeking and implementing instant change with a view to achieve the agreed goals and facilitate all the processes. Thinking ahead about the future of the Convention, we believe that regardless of the positive recent developments, the discussion concerning the concept of outstanding universal value and the approach to protection of World Heritage properties should be reassumed. We will come back to these 2 points later during the session. Now we would like to turn our attention to another matter. The World Heritage List internationalizes properties and the issues of their protection. As is apparent, politics are a natural part of the World Heritage concept. What worries us in the recent years is an increase in lobbying. The lobbying activities are doubtless evidence of a country's commitment, but the forceful nature of such activities results in difficulties on the part of the committee to engage in a substantive discussion. It also deflects the attention from other equally important issues. We would like to appeal to all of us to maintain moderation and focus our forces and resources on what is most important, on the protection and conservation of World Heritage properties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now the floor is Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Japan would like to thank the DG for this strong leadership to carry forward the initiative, which is very important for the future of the World Heritage Convention. Here, Japan would like to make 3 points. First, we welcome the initiatives taken by ICOMOS and IUCN to enhance transparency, dialogue, and diversity in its evaluation processes. We hope that these initiatives for reform will be consolidated with the outcome of the ad hoc working group and formalized into amendment to the operational guidelines. Second, we fully endorse the need to strengthen financial resources for conservation efforts, including for emergency measures to protect cultural and natural heritage affected by conflicts or natural disasters. In this regard, Japan has recently provided $1.5 million to a UNESCO project for the protection of Iraqi cultural heritage, including capacity building and satellite monitoring. In Nepal, we also decided to finance a project through the World Heritage Center as part of our early response for the recovery and the rehabilitation of cultural heritage in the Kathmandu Valley World Heritage Site. Lastly, Japan would like to stress the importance of our common efforts towards a more representative, balanced, and credible World Heritage List. We should further strengthen the upstream process for increasing nominations from underrepresented regions and cultures. Japan looks forward to further discussions in the 2 working groups to arrive at a successful outcome at this committee with the leadership of Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Finland has the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I would like to join those thanking Director General for this initiative, since it has provided us collectively the chance to address many of the key questions of how to safeguard the high quality and the value and the credibility of the World Heritage List, but also how to further develop the protection and conservation of the listed sites and other World Heritage. Now, Finland has appreciated and supported, and we have also actively participated in the process of thinking ahead ever since its launch in 2012. We have found this process very useful since it has provided us the possibility to address the existing and evolving challenges as well as the possibilities in a comprehensive and structurized manner. Now, we have taken note that some of the key thinking ahead issues will be addressed in this session under different agenda items as referred to Director Rao previously, including 13A, dealing with a report of the ad hoc working group. Hence, we would like to propose that in the coming sessions, the thinking ahead process should be addressed thematically in a more focused way.
providing a discussion of each individual key theme or question under the same single agenda item. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now Turkey has the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It is obvious that I join my voice with those who have commended the Director General and the Secretariat and all those countries who have been consistently and continuously supporting initiatives to open a new vision and towards revival for how we will move ahead. I say yes, but not enough, Madam Chair. It is high time that we produce more action-oriented, result-oriented, concrete, visionary steps and formulas. This is the year for General Conference, so the World Heritage Committee's report and resolution on this particular issue should not be restricted to recognizing the existing problems and engaging in some, I wouldn't say cosmetic, but modest measures for economy and for improvements. We have a proverb in Turkish. We say the mountains should not give birth to rats. Mountains should give birth to hills and other mountains. And everybody recognizes in this room and beyond the relevance of UNESCO and the World Heritage Convention for the new century, with all the challenges and threats and risks. Therefore, we have to start thinking more operatively, even to the extent of maybe, this is my personal opinion, I have to say that referendum, creating a panel of eminent persons which is going to engage on all this positive work which is being carried out in terms of self-innovation by advisory bodies, the ad hoc group, and prepare some serious package to put it in front of the General Conference so that we can be more action-oriented and more result-oriented. We produce real solutions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the representative of Korea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Republic of Korea would like to thank the Director General's initiative on thinking ahead and firmly believes in the initiative's benefit for this convention. The importance of World Heritage and the scope of its mandate is indeed very strong, and these initiatives for seeking ways to better the system is always welcome. Especially, we would like to draw members' attention to the upstream process. Recognizing the values of heritage through identification is highly effective in ensuring the sound protection and management. The nomination process is not just about congratulating the excellence of our heritage, but to also have a chance to put in place a strong mechanism for protection and management. This is the reason why we believe the upstream process is important for many state parties. The upstream process is very instrumental in facilitating state parties with limited experiences to better prepare for nominations to the World Heritage List, and thereby increases possibility to successfully inscribe their nominations. In this regard, the Republic of Korea has supported several funds in trust for World Heritage projects in the Asia-Pacific region in the recent years. In particular, the Republic of Korea is supporting the Republic of Maldives for preparing its nomination of the Coral Stone Mosque, and the Philippines its nomination of the Baton's protected landscapes and seascapes. We believe that the result of the upstream approach have benefited all stakeholders involved in the process. The Republic of Korea will continue its support for making the upstream process approach a regular instrument to be employed within the convention. Also, we will make our utmost effort to reflect any decision of the committee related to upstream process approach in planning and executing Korea's fund in trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Portugal has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Like others, we praise this initiative and the Director General for her forward-looking engagement with the 1972 Convention. This initiative has proven to be a useful platform for all stakeholders to share views on the challenges facing the Convention and for the continuing collective contribution to its full implementation, thus enhancing its worldwide credibility. I share much of what was said by my Turkish colleague, but nevertheless, major progress has, I believe, indeed been achieved already. For instance, there is now a growing understanding about the importance of setting up and updating credible tentative lists where clear OUV and potential and filling the gaps principle are justifiable, so to further promote a representative, balanced and credible World Heritage List. We have adopted the screening process in Portugal with the support of the advisory bodies. Important steps have also been made to move forward the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy and other initiatives to reinforce capacity building at national and regional levels. Further strengthening of state parties' expertise to better protect and manage cultural, natural and mixed properties remains of the utmost importance. Public awareness is also crucial for the promotion of the Convention, as well as taking into account property's state of conservation and emerging challenges, as more and more sites are coming under threat. Also, more efforts and resources should be made available for conservation, and the right balance with new nominations needs to be found. So, Madam President, reforms have been possible despite resource constraints and other new challenges. But we must be mindful of the fact that we may have reached a breaking point here and that the status quo is no longer acceptable, nor is it sustainable. As the World Heritage List has passed the 1,000 listed properties worldwide, and serious threats to cultural heritage sites have grown, as we saw extensively during our morning's discussions, the challenges are rising continuously to higher levels. I trust that we will go through these and other challenges under the following item when you, Madam President, will share with us the results of the ad hoc working group. I thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the state parties? From other state? Who is?
Serbia.
Serbia, please. Serbia has the floor.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chair. As we take the floor for the first time, I will express my gratitude for the warm hospitality, for the excellent organization, for your efficient chairmanship, and for this very happy initiative with the leadership of our DG. It's very difficult not to repeat what has been said. At the beginning, you asked us not to repeat what has been said. A lot of wise things have been said, and we agree almost with everything that has been said. But anyway, you know, we think that really this dialogue between advisory bodies and states parties has been really strengthened in the last period due to this initiative, has become more transparent, and really there is a serious improvement in it. And our ad hoc created working group had worked on it very much and had adopted certain recommendations. And we would like that this way continues, that these recommendations finally find a reflection and to be reflected in the operational guidelines in order to make this dialogue institutionalized as a new value in our communication. We think that we should pass from words to deeds, as has been already said, and we look forward that it happens at this committee session, at the end that we will have institutionalized dialogue, not only goodwill, but that is something that will become our way of thinking and on working. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. And I ask again, any further comments?
Switzerland.
Switzerland, please. Switzerland has the floor.
Madame la directrice, bonjour. Merci de me donner la parole. Juste un point par rapport au rapport qui a été fait suite à l'initiative de la directrice générale. J'aimerais relever le point 32. Ayant dirigé les débats concernant la nouvelle introduction d'un système électoral pour la fin de cette année, j'aimerais rendre attentifs tous les membres qui vont participer à ces élections de la nouvelle procédure que nous allons avoir, et j'aimerais demander bien sûr au Comité du patrimoine mondial de prendre toutes les mesures nécessaires d'information pour que ces élections se passent dans les meilleures conditions possibles. Nous allons avoir un nouveau système et il risque d'être un petit peu compliqué, donc il est bien évident que peut-être une séance d'information à ce propos serait nécessaire. Merci.
Thank you. And there's another, well, Algeria, I think. Algeria has the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous remercions vivement Madame la Directrice Générale pour cette initiative à l'occasion des 40 ans d'existence de la Convention. La réflexion sur l'avenir de la Convention nous a permis de marquer un temps d'arrêt pour faire un bilan qui nous conduit aujourd'hui à discuter des questions d'importance et en nombre. Elles sont très nombreuses. Ce processus que nous engageons va-t-il nous mener à terme à reconnaître peut-être la nécessité d'intervenir sur la Convention elle-même pour la renforcer et la consolider, probablement à travers un autre instrument normatif qui prendra la forme certainement d'un protocole. Mais nous pensons que la réflexion devrait d'ores et déjà être engagée sur cette question. Nous travaillons sur les orientations que nous modifions tous les 4 ans, que nous avons décidé de modifier tous les 4 ans. Certaines dispositions des orientations ne peuvent plus être dans les orientations, mais elles doivent être contenues dans le corps de la Convention. Nous voulions porter cette réflexion à votre intention. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Well, I look around. Any further comments of the state parties? Other observers? That's right. Well, that means there's a lady, and you have the floor. Lebanon? Oh, sorry. First Lebanon. Then the other observers.
Thank
Lebanon
you, Mrs.
has the floor, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. First of all, we would like to join the other state parties in congratulating the Director General for the initiative about the World Heritage Convention, Thinking Ahead. Then we would say that during the last period, we have worked a lot in order to enhance the process of negotiation between the advisory bodies and the state parties. We have worked a lot in order to enhance the process of nomination, evaluation, etc., etc. There have been a working group that have worked under your chairmanship, Mrs. Chair, during the last year. The result of the working group is available in a document. All this should be reflected in the modification of the guidelines. However, we have only 5 days to modify the guidelines. Maybe we will not be able to do a real complete change of the text. Maybe we should introduce a process that should continue after this session in order to continue in depth the amendment and the evolution of the guidelines. I leave this to the results of the working group, but from now on, I think we will not maybe we'll not be able to introduce everything in the current guidelines. The process of the evolution of the guidelines is a long process. It takes time, it takes maturation, etc., etc. We may need to continue the process after the committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabar. And now I'd like to switch to the other observers. I'll give the floor to one of them, and I'd like to ask you to identify yourself at first. Yeah, please. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Marcela Jaramillo. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am speaking on behalf...
excuse me. Oh, that's all right. Continue, please continue.
I am speaking on behalf of civil society organizations who attend the conference, the UNESCO World Heritage and the Role of Civil Societies, organized by World Heritage Watch. We appreciate the opportunity to address the committee and thank the government of Germany for hosting us. We would like to take this opportunity to bring to the committee's attention a key point on the consensus for the conference. We are committed to the World Heritage Convention as the global framework to safeguard our planet's unique cultural and natural heritage. Thousands of individuals, local communities, NGOs, and other civil society organizations, as well as indigenous people, work on a daily basis to protect these properties. We also raise hundreds of millions of dollars each year for individual sites and support national governments to fulfill their obligation under the Convention. We are committed to strengthening our engagement with the Convention and to reinforce the involvement with the bodies of the Convention in a systematic manner. We welcome the discussion on this issue in the document, the World Heritage Convention, Thinking Ahead. It is time for the committee to give civil society a role in the process of the convention in a spirit of open dialogue and cooperation. We ask the committee to recognize the contribution of civil society organizations to the convention and to welcome the initiative to hold a civil society conference prior to the annual session of the committee and present the results to the committee meeting. We urge the committee to explore opportunities to strengthen civil society participation in the implementation of the convention for consideration at the 40th session of the World Heritage Committee 2016. We are ready to propose language to the committee immediately if you were invited us to do it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for this statement. And there are no other comments. So, Mr. Rao, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were no specific questions on this particular item. There have been a lot of very supportive general statements covering a whole range of themes. And like I said at the beginning, we will be covering each of these topics under different items. And therefore, I don't think that there is any need to give any response at this stage. Many suggestions that have been made, we have well noted them, and we will be following up on those. I note that the rapporteur has not received any suggestions for amending the draft decision, but there was one specific suggestion from Finland about addressing each of these topics under different themes. I don't know whether that needs to be reflected in the draft decision, because if you look at the draft decision that the Secretariat has presented, we have not asked for it to be reported back to future sessions as a separate document. So we will integrate the progress of each of these items under different thematic documents. That is what we had proposed to do. So, Madam Chairperson, if there is no other specific amendment to the draft decision, there was, of course, the suggestion that the civil society had made just now, but that is something for the committee to consider. Thank you very much.
Finland, do you agree with that? Yeah. All right. Thank you. I would like to make a general comment, again in German. Ich möchte nach dieser so intensiven Diskussion auch von meiner Seite feststellen, dass ich die Plattform, die von der Generaldirektorin geschaffen worden ist, für außerordentlich wichtig halte. Thinking Ahead ist ein Prozess, der Anstöße gibt, der auch sich damit mit den Erfordernissen der Zeit auseinandersetzt. Und ich glaube, es ist wichtig, dass dieser Prozess in geeigneter Weise zu Ergebnissen führt, aber auch fortgeführt wird und sich vor allen Dingen auch vernetzt mit anderen Initiativen, die wir haben. Und ich will gleich im Anschluss an diesen Tagesordnungspunkt dann auf die Ergebnisse der Ad-hoc Working Group eingehen, sodass wir hier verschiedene Zugangsweisen haben. Ich will aber auch noch ein Wort zu der letzten Wortmeldung sagen von den anderen Beobachtern, das heißt von der Zivilgesellschaft. Wir haben sie oben gesehen auf dem Balkon. Wir wissen um ihr Engagement und es ist in der Tat das erste Mal, dass wir für die Zivilgesellschaft einen Raum im Rahmen der Komiteesitzung bereitgestellt haben. Ich denke, das zeigt, wie wichtig uns wechselseitig der Kontakt und der Austausch ist, und das Welterbe lebt einfach auch mit von dem Engagement der Zivilgesellschaft. Deshalb möchte ich Ihnen einen sehr herzlichen Dank für dieses große Engagement von Ihrer Seite auch sagen. Jetzt, now I like to ask the rapporteur. Any amendments? No.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No amendments have been received concerning this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Therefore, it's for me the possibility. I declare the draft decision 39.5c adopted. Fine. Thank you. And now, dear colleagues, we turn our attention to item 13a, which concerns the working methods of the evaluation and decision-making process of nomination. Please refer to working document WHC 15/39/13A, as well as WHC 15/39/inf.30a that are in front of you. As you will remember, the committee at its last session adopted decision 38.13, by which it took into account the state of the evaluation and consultation process between the advisory bodies and state parties. By the same decision, the committee called upon the advisory bodies to consult and have a dialogue with all concerned state parties during the course of the evaluation of nominations in order to enhance overall transparency and to optimize future decision-making by the World Heritage Committee. In this framework, the committee decided to establish an ad hoc working group to examine the issues related to working methods of the evaluation and decision-making process of nomination and to formulate its recommendations thereon. Dear colleagues, this ad hoc working group has been met several times during the year under my chairmanship, and I'm pleased to report on this work and recommendation as per decision 38.13. And I continue in German. Neben Deutschland als Vorsitz waren Algerien, Finnland, Indien, Jamaika, Japan, Libanon, Peru, Philippinen, Polen, Senegal und Serbien vertreten. Damit haben alle Regionalgruppen jeweils 2 Länder entsandt. Die Arbeitsgruppe hat sich insgesamt 3-mal getroffen. Außerdem haben mehrmals Unterarbeitsgruppen zu folgenden 3 Themen getagt. Erstens Arbeitsmethoden der Beratungsorganisationen, zweitens des Welterbekomitees und drittens Finanzen. Es geht darum, und das war der Kern unserer Arbeit, das eigentliche Ziel der Konvention, nämlich die Erhaltung und das Management der Bedeutungsstätten der Welt sicherzustellen. Wir haben gesagt, es geht um die Einhaltung einheitlicher und allgemein akzeptierter Maßstäbe. Und die Arbeitsmethoden müssen auch stärker berücksichtigen, dass die Anträge deutlich komplexer geworden sind und die Antragsteller eine politische Dynamik mit hohem Erfolgsdruck entfaltet. Die hohen Erwartungen resultieren aus dem Erfolg der Welterbeliste, darauf können wir stolz sein. Aber entscheidend für die Einschreibung in die Welterbeliste muss der Nachweis des außergewöhnlichen universellen Wertes sein, und er muss es auch bleiben. Wir müssen uns immer wieder bewusst sein, dass es um das Erbe der Menschheit geht, und ich sage das auch hier noch einmal, nicht das eines einzelnen Landes. Der Bericht über die Ergebnisse der Arbeitsgruppe liegt Ihnen nun zusammen mit anderen Dokumenten vor, und ich will noch einmal 7 Punkte nennen, die Sie zum Teil auch schon kennen, aber es ist wichtig, dass wir das heute bei der Komiteesitzung auch noch einmal in den Blick rücken. Erstens, wir empfehlen den Dialog mit den Vertragsstaaten so früh wie möglich im Evaluierungsprozess zu starten und nicht nur schriftlich, sondern auch im direkten Gespräch zwischen den Antragstellern und den Beratungsorganisationen Informationen auszutauschen. Ich freue mich, sagen zu können, dass dies inzwischen auf einem guten Weg ist. Zweitens empfehlen wir, die Evaluierungsberichte der Beratungsorganisation so früh wie möglich den betroffenen Vertragsstaaten und den Experten in den Delegationen der Komiteemitglieder zu übersenden. Auch das, glaube ich, hat Resonanz gefunden. Drittens schlagen wir vor, dass die Namen aller an der Evaluierung beteiligten Experten veröffentlicht werden. Wir wollen, dass die Namen der Mitglieder der World Heritage Panels der Beratungsorganisation mit Hinweisen zu ihrer Qualifikation zu veröffentlichen und die Mandatszeit zeitlich beschränkt wird. Und wir wollen bei Evaluierungen grundsätzlich das 4-Augen-Prinzip anwenden. Ich begrüße sehr, dass in diesem Sinn ein guter und intensiver Austausch stattgefunden hat, gerade auch mit den Beratungsorganisationen, und dass die Beratungsorganisationen auch nicht gewartet haben, bis wir den Schlussstrich im Sinne von Beschlüssen darunter setzen, sondern dass sie begonnen haben, sich dieser Frage zu stellen und Vorschläge aufzugreifen. Viertens schlagen wir vor, andere Institutionen, beispielsweise die UNESCO-Chairs, Universitäten und Forschungsinstitute, in das Evaluierungsverfahren einzubeziehen und dies transparenter zu machen. Transparenz ist ein entscheidendes Anliegen von diesen Vorschlägen. Fünftens, wir empfehlen, die Kosten einer jeden Evaluierung im Einzelnen aufzulisten. Ich denke, nach der Diskussion, die wir heute geführt haben, ist dieses Anliegen umso wichtiger. Sechstens schlagen wir vor, eindrücklich dafür einzutreten, die Evaluierung von Nominierungen von Komiteemitgliedern während ihrer Mandatszeit freiwillig ruhen zu lassen, um die Glaubwürdigkeit des Komitees und des gesamten Welterbeprogramms nicht zu gefährden. Dies ist ein Vorschlag, mit dem Sie vertraut sind, aber ich glaube, man muss ihn noch einmal in den Blick rücken. Und es ist siebtens ein Punkt offen geblieben. Es geht um die Frage der Finanzen. Und wir haben heute Morgen das sehr in den Blick genommen, dass angesichts einer wachsenden Zahl von Welterbestätten auch der finanzielle Aufwand für die Evaluierung und das Monitoring wächst. Es ist damit die Frage, wie viele Anträge können mit dem vorhandenen Budget überhaupt evaluiert werden. Wir waren der Überzeugung, und wir sind es, wir brauchen eine gerechte Lösung. So haben wir gesagt, entweder begrenzen wir die Anzahl der maximal möglichen Evaluierungen pro Jahr von 45 auf 25 bis 30. Ich glaube, das will aber eigentlich niemand. Oder wir verständigen uns darauf, dass Staaten, die finanziell in der Lage dazu sind, sich an den Kosten der Evaluierung beteiligen oder sie ganz übernehmen. Wir haben auch über die Höhe gesprochen. Im Schnitt kostet eine Evaluierung ungefähr 25.000 US-Dollar. In der Summe kann man dafür sehr viel bewegen. Ich habe auch die Sorge wahrgenommen von Staaten, die dazu nicht in der Lage sind. Und wir haben deshalb auch gesagt, dass natürlich solche Staaten keinen Beitrag zu den Evaluierungskosten leisten müssen. Dieser Punkt insgesamt, die Frage der Finanzierung, konnte nicht abschließend beantwortet werden. Und ich glaube, es ist jetzt wichtig, diese Gedanken mit aufzunehmen in der Budget-Arbeitsgruppe und es weiterzuführen. Und die Diskussion heute Morgen hat ja sehr wohl gezeigt, wenn wir hier nicht eine konkrete Antwort geben, werden wir an unsere Grenzen stoßen. Und genau das wollen wir eigentlich nicht. Und deshalb lege ich Ihnen genau diesen Punkt bei aller Schwierigkeit, eine faire Lösung zu finden, noch einmal sehr ans Herz. Insgesamt kann man sagen, von diesen Vorschlägen, diesen Reformvorschlägen, es sind Empfehlungen, die in der Ad-hoc-Arbeitsgruppe erarbeitet worden sind. Wir haben es uns nicht leicht gemacht. Wir haben intensiv diskutiert. Und Sie müssen dann auch in die weitere Diskussion eingehen. Ich glaube, wir sollten jetzt nicht eine Arbeitsgruppe nach der anderen einberufen, sondern wir sollten uns Folgendes überlegen. Dear colleagues, as indicated this morning during the adoption of the agenda, several questions discussed in the ad hoc working group are related to the operational guidelines, to the rules of procedure as well to the budget. Therefore, I would suggest that these questions be also discussed during the working groups that we have constituted on these two items. This will allow us to prepare and adopt an agreed decision on Monday, the 6th of July, as foreseen in our timetable. And I say thank you very much for the cooperation, especially to the members of the ad hoc working group, but for everybody here in the committee. Thank you. So, if you agree with this, you could do, yeah? Now, are there any comments to these recommendations? Mm-mm. No? Fine. Philippines and Finland. And Portugal and Turkey. Good. And India. Fine. Then Philippines has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We thank you for the presentation of the results of the ad hoc working group and for your able leadership of the process. We believe the ad hoc working group has come up with very important recommendations that help strengthen the credibility, transparency, and efficiency of the World Heritage Committee and its advisory bodies. Our delegation was a member of the subgroup on advisory bodies, which focused its work on 3 baskets of issues, namely dialogue and consultation, transparency, and expertise. We welcome the responsiveness of ICOMOS and IUCN to our proposals to enhance dialogue and consultation with nominating states parties while respecting the independence of their advisory bodies. The Philippines, India, and Serbia worked very closely with other members of the subgroup and indeed the entire ad hoc working group to formulate concrete amendments to the operational guidelines that seek to institutionalize this recognized good practice of dialogue and consultation in the evaluation process. These amendments can be found as an information document under item 13A. We hope these amendments can be considered and supported by the consultative body on the revision of the operational guidelines. We note that quite a number of committee members and states parties have voiced support to our proposals, which translate the recommendations of the ad hoc working group into operational language. We have done a similar informal mapping exercise for the other recommendations in the ad hoc working group's report, working closely again with all the delegations of the committee. Some of the recommendations of the ad hoc working group do not relate directly to the operational guidelines, but are perhaps taken up through rules of procedure or indeed have to be adopted by way of a draft decision. We hope all these issues can be thoroughly discussed in the working group on the operational guidelines. In addition, we think that matters related to finances, such as a possible cap on nominations and fees, could be discussed jointly by the working group on the operational guidelines and the working group on the budget, as these issues are quite connected. If no agreement would be possible on these issues here, Madam Chairperson, perhaps these could be further taken up intersessionally through a mechanism similar to that of the ad hoc working group or in an open-ended fashion. In conclusion, Madam Chair, we hope that as a matter of priority, this session can adopt the very good recommendations, especially relating to dialogue and consultation, which the ad hoc working group has so fastidiously worked on throughout the last year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Finland has the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your very precise, concise conclusions about the work of the ad hoc working group, and especially of that part of being honest and realistic, that because we consider that the group actually achieved a lot and results are there, but being honest and realistic, we are not there all the way, especially when it comes to financing. That is the mandate and the task that was given. So far, the work is still pending. Now, I don't need to repeat the severe imbalance of the workload and the resources, but since you suggested that the budget working group would take along on those issues and should continue the discussion, I would just like to underline the need for flexibility, underline the need for an open mind in order for the subgroup to achieve in some concrete progress. And I'm sure that the members of the committee now, the whole committee, after having followed the work of the ad hoc working group, is motivated to contribute constructively to this work. But let's be also realistic about it, and I'm sure that we can rely on your support, Madam Chair, if there are some obstacles that we should face. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Portugal has the floor now.
Thank you, Madam President. And like others, allow me, first of all, to thank you for your very comprehensive presentation and to commend your able leadership of the group and your constant engagement to bring about viable and sustainable solutions. As members of this committee, we all have the responsibility to contribute to improving its working methods, namely on the evaluation and decision-making process of nominations to the World Heritage List, and I believe we all share the view that changes are indeed needed. As I have already mentioned, significant progress has been made concerning the dialogue between advisory bodies, state parties, and other stakeholders. More transparency has also been the case in the designation of the experts, and also more expertise has been acquired to ensure wide coverage of all the varieties of cultural heritage. These efforts should be pursued and consolidated. As you know, Madam President, Portugal had made the voluntary commitment not to submit nominations as long as we remained a member of this committee. I underline that this was a commitment that we took on a voluntary basis. We have seen merit in further encouraging state parties to show their willingness to refrain from presenting new nominations or having their nominations reviewed during their mandates, as we believe that this would indeed be an example of good practices in the framework of the 1972 Convention. Madam President, we have to be consistent with the spirit of common purpose that should always guide our endeavors concerning these issues. This is why we need to be careful in the way we address the present financial constraints. Undoubtedly, further efforts are needed to better balance financial resources between evaluations, monitoring, and international assistance. We do believe that additional voluntary contributions to the fund are seriously needed. But at the same time, we should find new and innovative ways to increase resources. Taking all this into account, I believe that the state party's sovereign right to present a nomination should in no way be curtailed. Similarly, the presentation of nominations can in any way depend on the payment or of the capacity to pay the cost of the nominations. I think that we all agree that we must abide by one single standard. Should we wish to reiterate the principle of state parties voluntary refraining from submitting nominations during their mandate in the committee, we should equally abide by the principle that contributions to the cost of nominations evaluation process are to be encouraged, but on a voluntary basis only. This being said, let me assure you, Madam President, that Portugal remains fully committed to these issues and to exploring ways that may be acceptable to us all. I thank you.
Thank you. India has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, like the others, I would wish to congratulate Germany because you so successfully steered the ad hoc working group, which held several meetings through the course of the past 1 year. We also concur with your proposal that these issues should be remitted to the two working groups that have been set up this morning, and that is a good way indeed to proceed with all of this. The third point that I would wish to make is that there are some issues that have been remitted to these two groups on which progress has been made, which has been set out by my colleagues, particularly from the Philippines and Portugal. And there has been good progress indeed made on those, notably the consultation process with the advisory bodies. There, I think, perhaps without exception, there is agreement that there should be enhanced transparency, enhanced consultation and dialogue, and we do feel that at the very least, this consensus should be reflected in the operational guidelines, which cannot be revised every year, and this year happens to be one of those years when you can revise them. There are also certain other areas which again have been set out by the Philippines and Portugal in particular, where there might be less agreement, what the ambassador from Finland, I think, mentioned as possible obstacles. So let us try and sort those so-called obstacles with a very positive mind. Who knows, we might achieve consensus there too. But we do know that some of these are the tougher issues. The issues that have been set out, reduction in the number of nominations, the self-restraint to be exercised by committee members, the fee aspect, etc., etc. So even as we go about trying to find solutions and to find a consensus on all these issues, let us at the very least, through the course of this committee, go for the revision of the operational guidelines in those areas where there is, I think, a clear consensus. That would be my request to the World Heritage Committee members. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Turkey has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first would like to thank Your Excellency because World Heritage Convention is one of the flagship instruments of UNESCO. And since you have taken over the chair of the ad hoc working group, this ship has been propelling faster than maybe ever before. So we are grateful to you and the ad hoc committee for this constructive injection of energy and revival, which gives us hope. So having been inspired by this, I also want to fully associate myself with the statements made by delegations of Philippines and Portugal with regard to those recommendations which we should move forward and adopt, and those other outstanding issues where we need to first make sure that there is broad consensus, not only within the ad hoc group, but beyond, across the board among all the members. So the transparency requires that, and we feel that the issues like bringing a cap to the quota or quotas to the number of files may actually end up removing one of the propellers of the ship that we would not like to have it in a flagship. That is why those outstanding issues like the financing, fees, and voluntary restrictions and bringing of caps to the number of nominations, they need further discussions, and these discussions should take place maybe in a broader ad hoc group with open-ended participation by those member states, and those interested parties also take part. That's why we propose that the ad hoc group be extended after we have adopted the recommendations on which there is clear consensus. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. And now Jamaica has the floor, and then Japan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And we join others in thanking you for presenting the report and for so ably chairing the ad hoc working group. Madam Chair, through diligent work, the working group was able to conclude its mandate as it relates to the advisory bodies, the World Heritage Committee, and finance. We were able to reach consensus on most of the issues, and it is our view that the outcome of the working group will go a far way in improving the working methods in terms of the evaluation and decision-making process for the nominations up to the World Heritage List and provide greater clarity to the process. The only outstanding issue is, of course, that of finance. Proposals are on the table and more work needs to be done. We support the proposal that we should revisit the issue, extend the life or the mandate of the working group on finance, and continue to work on this matter. Jamaica was a member of the working group, and as we have stated then and we state now, that any decisions taken should not compromise the integrity and spirit of the World Heritage Convention. We must ensure that whatever we do, whether it's in finance, whether it is in the cap on nominations, that our goal is to achieve a balanced and representative World Heritage List. We remain committed to the process, and we look forward to continuing discussions in the working group. We support the view expressed by Philippines, Portugal, Turkey, India, and others that we should continue until we arrive at a consensus on this outstanding issue and revert to the committee at its next session in July next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Japan has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan would like to join the previous speakers to express its sincere appreciation to you, Madam Chair, for your leadership and commitment to improve the World Heritage System. Thanks to your efforts, we have made substantial progress in improving transparency, as I noted previously. To facilitate the discussions to be held in the working groups, let me put forward several points of observation or suggestion from our part. First, we should recognize that, as actually pointed out by Madam Chair as point 7, we have still this issue of finance, especially its relations to the ceiling for new nominations. Japan is of the view that proposals to lower the cap of nominations, such as the one from 45 to 25 or 30, would have to be carefully examined in their cost effectiveness. For example, the cost saved by the lowered cap from 45 to 25 or 30 would amount to $142,000 for the next biennium. This is 1.6% of the total budget for the World Heritage Fund. Second, we must recognize that upstream process and preparatory assistance for new nominations are as important as conservation activities and critical to improve geographical distribution of the World Heritage List. Third, and I should say, therefore, Japan is open to ideas of introducing new funding mechanisms. For example, the idea that those who could afford to contribute would contribute for the procedures of their nominations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. There are two speakers on my list, Colombia and Croatia.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Las propuestas que estuvieron sobre la mesa sobre modificaciones de guías operativas o de financiamiento, consideramos también que deben continuar en un debate más amplio, prolongado y participativo, dado que el grupo de trabajo tuvo que subdividirse en sí mismo en un grupo reducido y consideramos que la participación es necesaria hasta poder llegar a un consenso. Asimismo, queremos expresar que Colombia cree firmemente en la recomendación de discrecionalidad de los países miembros del comité para abstenerse de presentar nominaciones durante su mandato. Este principio fue fundamental y fue el principio sobre el cual Colombia presentó su candidatura en el 2010.
Thank you. Croatia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also, and we would like to join all the previous speakers in commending you for this excellent job in chairing this working group, as we know that have been previous attempts that have not been so successful. We agree also that all the issues that we agree upon should be adopted, all the amendments and all the challenging one should be further discussed and presented at the next committee. We consider that this is a really crucial turning point of the convention, and to make this convention that is so dear to all of us to reshape it in modern, efficient, inclusive, even more expert convention, as was mentioned by previous speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Lebanon.
Thank you, Mrs. President. Since tomorrow, I'm going to chair this working group about the revision of the operational guidelines. I will not have the opportunity to take the floor since I will chair. So today, I would like to give two things. First of all, my experience, and then the position of my country, Lebanon. As my experience, I'd like to recall, I had the chance and the responsibility to chair a group in Suzhou, a working group that was created by the committee. And this working group was specifically tackling the issue of the number of nominations. At that time, we didn't have financial problems. It's not the case today, but at that time we didn't have financial problems. The question of limitation of number of nominations was basically discussed in order to reduce the disequilibrium in the repartition, geographic and thematic repartition of nominations and of sites inscribed on the list. Because we noticed at that that time that the countries that have the capacity of presenting 2 or 3 or more nominations are always the same, and that the countries like Africa or other countries couldn't present even 1 nomination per year or 1 nomination per 5 years. So the idea to limit the number of nominations was to limit the overrepresented type of sites, whether regional or thematic, and to help other regions that are underrepresented to be able to present more sites. So this is one. Now, the position of my country is clear concerning the question of financing. We should go further in discussing the issue of finance, which is now a crucial issue. There have been a lot of ideas that have been presented. One of these is that those state parties who can finance their own sites should do that. Let's be a little bit cautious about this, because it could introduce a new division in the committee between wealthy countries and poor countries. Wealthy countries can finance their own sites, and poor countries cannot do it. So it's a question that could be discussed. It should be discussed and in depth in order to find the real good solutions. Thank you.
What happened? So, now the floor is, Kazakhstan has the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for your excellent presentation. Well, first of all, let me congratulate you on the adoption of Bonn Declaration today. Well, as far as the working group is concerned, my country supported the activity of the working group, which was useful and which led to many proposals and ideas in terms of dialogue, transparency, evaluation process, financing. And my delegation joins many other speakers here today, which propose that many outstanding issues that remains to be discussed further. Thank you very much.
Cool. There was a lot of comments. Tim Batman, I think, for just a brief comment.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And it's just one very brief point, more from the point of view of just orientating the committee to documents. So it's related to the INF 13A that was mentioned by Philippines. And it's just to note that in the revision of the operational guidelines item, particularly related to Annex 6, which is the part which defines our procedures, we essentially crossed them all out completely, and both ECOMOS and IUCN have rewritten those. So I think it just could be helpful to the working group on the operational guidelines to take note that there's an INF which makes some comments on that annex, but there's also a completely new text for that annex as well, so that we, when we come to the working group, we're aware that there are perhaps 2 different texts that we're going to need to work from and harmonise, and it may be useful perhaps for the subgroup of the ad hoc working group and the advisory bodies just to consult quietly if we have the opportunity, and if Philippines and colleagues would agree, just so we can discuss together that text, because we didn't yet have the opportunity to do that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. There's one more comment from Argentina, I think, that I would like to close the debate. Yes, please. Argentina, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Bueno, queríamos agradecer también la organización y en este magnífico edificio que representa la transparencia, nos pueden ver desde afuera y esto es público, es un homenaje a Alemania también que nos debe motivar. Con respecto al grupo de trabajo estamos totalmente de acuerdo. Estuvimos siempre de acuerdo con la propuesta de abstenernos de hacer propuestas de inscripción durante el mandato de los miembros. Ahora, estamos en un momento crucial y diferente. Antes los bienes culturales no eran atacados como un objetivo concreto y ahora sí. Por lo tanto, queremos proponer que el grupo de trabajo piense en una solución. Muchas veces los bienes culturales son atacados por razones políticas contra un gobierno determinado. El hecho de que haya presentaciones multinacionales o plurinacionales puede ayudar a que dejen de ser un monoobjetivo y pasen a dejar de tener interés. Por lo tanto, queremos proponer que las presentaciones plurinacionales se puedan hacer aun cuando un miembro del comité lo integre. Tenemos muchas experiencias en nuestra región, el Capañán, que nos ha ayudado a encontrar métodos de comunicación muy profunda y estamos en condiciones, los países miembros, de aportar nuestra experiencia, como también muchos países europeos que tienen propuestas plurinacionales. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and your support. We will continue the discussions during the next days. No doubt we have to move forwards. That means not only to make recommendations, but to adopt decisions. I hope we will do that in the 2 working groups and, of course, next Monday, the 6th of July. Thank you. After this item, I have to leave this meeting, and I would like to ask my Vice Chair, the Ambassador of India, to chair the meeting now. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. A little change of guard, as they say. I will now move on to item 5D of our agenda, World Heritage Convention and Sustainable Development. Please note that document 5D will be the basis of our discussion. I would now like to invite Mr. Giovanni Boccardi to briefly present this item. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So this document presents a policy document that was requested by the committee on ways to integrate in the implementation of the World Heritage Convention a sustainable development perspective. If we may have the next slide, please. Right, so the first concept that I would like to stress is that this draft policy which is presented does not include any new concept or proposal which has not been already agreed by the member states at the UN and at the UNESCO levels. What this policy is trying to do is simply to mainstream into the World Heritage Convention the principles already accepted by member states in a broader international policy framework, including through decisions of the UNESCO General Conference and Executive Board, for example, in relation to issues such as human rights and gender equality, which is one of the 2 priorities of UNESCO. So this was done also to strengthen the policy coherence between the World Heritage Convention, which was adopted more than 40 years ago, and a number of other policy frameworks and multilateral environmental agreements. Next, please. So what is proposed is to apply a sustainable development lens to the processes of the World Heritage Convention across all dimensions of sustainable development. This aims to enabling a conservation and management of world heritage which, while achieving its core mission, that is to protect the outstanding universal value, is also sensitive to sustainable development. What is proposed, therefore, is not to add to the mandate of the Convention, which remains, of course, the same as enshrined in its original text of 1972, but simply to strengthen the synergy with the larger policy framework of sustainable development. Next, please. So clearly, protecting World Heritage contributes in its own right to sustainable development through a number of important benefits. For example, by conserving outstanding natural places of exceptional biodiversity, or protecting cultural landmarks that support identity and social cohesion. But sustainable development is also larger than World Heritage, and there is often a greater potential for contributing to sustainable development across all of its dimensions, which is not necessarily harnessed if one focuses only on protecting outstanding universal value. For example, one could maintain the same group of buildings within a World Heritage city by hiring a foreign multinational company, or by providing long-term employment opportunities to local men and women trained for that purpose. Moreover, it is important to ensure that activities for the conservation and management of World Heritage sites are compatible with sustainable development objectives by avoiding any possible conflict between the two agendas. For example, by ensuring the respect of human rights, or by paying attention to the environmental impact when making conservation decisions. So what is needed is a conservation and management of World Heritage sites which, while maintaining the outstanding universal value, seizes at the same time all existing opportunities to contribute to all dimensions of sustainable development, and is, in its own right, sustainable development sensitive. Now, the key point that I would like to emphasize here is that if we are able to do this, this will in turn contributing to ensuring the long-term sustainability of the outstanding universal value through the conservation of the ecological system and the support of local communities. There are therefore mutual benefits. Next, please. This slide shows the definition of sustainable development which has been used in the drafting of the policy, which is the one that was agreed by the UN General Assembly and reflected in the UN report, Realizing the Future We Want for All. The slide shows its 3 overarching principles and 4 core dimensions of sustainable development. Under each of these dimensions, the policy tries to propose principles that would guide states parties and everyone involved in the implementation of the World Heritage Convention to take them on board. This is, by the way, also the approach taken by the 2003 Convention on Intangible Heritage, which in October last year, next October, will consider a similar document. In fact, we have worked in close consultation with our colleagues of the 2003 Convention on this document to maximize policy coherence within the UNESCO conventions. Next slide. So the slide shows the process that is proposed. If the committee should agree to endorse this draft and to transmit it, possibly with some revisions, to the General Assembly, and if the latter adopts it, then it will be necessary to develop proposals for the revision of the operational guidelines to make sure that these principles are translated into practical procedures. And also, equally important, to develop the capacity building tools and programs that will enable the actors of the convention to implement the policy. So there will be a transitional period which is envisaged before the policy can be realistically implemented. Next and last slide. Now, the last point that I would like to make is that it has been often noted how it is important to strengthen the integration of and the synergy among the UNESCO cultural conventions and other related multilateral agreements. Tonight's event about the chairs of the committees about this. Now, sustainable development, as is the case for conflicts and disaster, provides an obvious and very promising thematic platform around which the integration of all cultural conventions can be actually translated into reality. In fact, the consultations that have taken place between the 2 secretariats of 72 and 2003 have already influenced each other's document in this respect. I would like to close by thanking the Cottbus University and the government of Germany, as well as the government of Vietnam for supporting this process, as well as all the experts that have worked on a voluntary basis for the completion of this document. The draft decision is in page 3 of the English and French versions of the document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bocardi. Dear colleagues, I am told that the advisory bodies would now like to make a joint intervention on this item through ICROM. May I therefore hand over the podium to ICROM. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a joint statement by advisory bodies IUCN, ICOMOS, and ICROM. The advisory bodies recognize the fundamental importance of linking the preservation of world's cultural and natural heritage to sustainable development objectives. In this regard, it is crucial to better understand and recognize the many benefits provided by World Heritage Sites. In addition, we consider this policy is very important because it will help ensuring that conservation and management strategies designed to protect the outstanding universal value of properties are appropriately aligned with broader sustainable development objectives. The provisions of the policy on inclusive social development are particularly significant in this respect. We also call attention to the fact that this policy will finally give substance to the principles expressed in the 5th C of communities adopted as part of the strategic objectives of the Convention in 2007, and at the same time ensure that World Heritage Convention is consistent with other related international policy instruments. In 2014, with the support of German Federal Agency for Nature Conservation, IUCN undertook the first assessment of the benefits associated with World Heritage Sites. As you already heard from the distinguished delegate from Germany, the study highlights the importance of the benefits both at global scale, such as carbon sequestration, and at local level, such as water provision, coastal protection, employment opportunities for nature-based tourism, as well as cultural and spiritual importance of World Heritage Sites. The study also emphasized that protecting World Heritage Sites for their outstanding universal value ensures the continuous provision of these benefits. The results of this study will be presented at the site event on the 4th July at 13:15. ICROM is actively promoting the theme of sustainable development through many of its capacity building activities. An introductory section emphasizing the relevance of the sustainable development has been included in the resource manual for managing cultural world heritage. The theme has been included since 2007 in the International Course on Conservation of Built Heritage. A standalone course module on promoting sustainable development has been developed and implemented. The theme will also play a key role in the new course being planned on engaging communities in October this year. The advisory bodies welcome the draft policy document on sustainable development presented under this item and appreciate the substantial efforts devoted to the preparation of this draft, including consultation with a wide range of stakeholders, and particularly the support provided by State Party Vietnam and Germany. We welcome the policy and recommend that the draft decision is supported by the committee. Finally, while we endorse the primacy of protecting the OUV of World Heritage Sites, as noted by the draft policy document, we consider that the precision of the document could be worked on further and that some points likely require a greater degree of specificity in order to ensure that the policy document can be implemented effectively. Advisory bodies underscore the need for this policy to be relevant to both natural and cultural properties and would be very pleased to participate further in finalizing this policy document for approval of the General Assembly and contribute further thoughts on its implementation as foreseen in the draft. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ikram. I would now like to invite you to adopt draft decision 39-5D, included in document 5D in point 2. Before that, I would like to ask our rapporteur if he has received amendments on the draft decision proposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, in fact, I received amendments from 3 countries, which are Philippines, Finland, and Colombia. I will start with the amendments presented by Philippines. On this item, paragraph 5, Philippines suggests to add a new paragraph, which is an additional paragraph on paragraph 5. Philippines requests the World Heritage Center to disseminate the draft policy document to all states parties and collate their comments. The next, paragraph 6, Philippines modifies it and also requests the World Heritage Center, in consultation with the advisory bodies, to revise the policy document by incorporating views expressed at the 39th sessions and other comments received from state parties, as well as by taking into account the final outcome of the negotiations for the establishment of the UN post-2015 development agenda and other relevant processes. The second amendment is presented by Finland, and it's in paragraph number 8, and it modifies it. So it becomes, Finland requests the World Heritage Center, along with the advisory bodies, to ensure, once the policy document is adopted by the General Assembly of the States Parties, that the policy document will be taken into account in the preparation of the overall policy guidelines as one of the essential elements to be inserted in the text. Finland as well deletes paragraph number 9 and suggests a new paragraph number 9, so it replaces it. So it becomes, Finland requests the World Heritage Center, along with the advisory bodies, to elaborate once the overall policy guidelines is adopted by the General Assembly of the States, proposals for specific changes to the operational guidelines that would be required to translate the principles of the policy guidelines into actual operational procedures. While Colombia does keep this paragraph number 9, so it's the same paragraph number 9 is subject to another amendment from Colombia. It does not want to delete it and replace it, but it keeps it and amends it, so it becomes, Colombia calls on state parties to contribute financially to this end, and after adoption by the General Assembly in 2015, to strengthen the policy by promoting a wider participation of the government, private sector, and communities. And we'll stay with Colombia and suggest amendments on paragraph 11 as well. So Colombia also encourages UNESCO and the advisory bodies to disseminate widely the policy document as adopted by the General Assembly and other related publications through appropriate means to the World Heritage community and the broader public, and promote its application. Here comes the amendment, and wider fostering in multilateral scenarios, especially in those related to sustainable development. Another amendment is proposed by Colombia on paragraph 12. So at the end it becomes, within their capacity building and research initiatives, here comes Colombia's amendment, as well as involving in their activities other actors and sectors related to sustainable development. These were the amendments presented by the 3 states. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee wish to make observations or suggestions? The floor is now open. I have 3 so far listed, Senegal, India, and Vietnam. Let me begin with Senegal. You have the floor, madam.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous souhaitons effectivement faire une observation qui nous semble être de fond, surtout sur le document principal. Nous pensons que dans ce document, la note 18, la note infrapaginale, donne l'occasion aux pays en développement de relever ce qui semble être une incohérence rédhibitoire à tout partage équitable de la Convention. Il est dit dans la note 18, certaines activités économiques ne sont pas compatibles avec la préservation de la VUE. Et on invite à respecter le principe de zone interdite. Nous pensons que vous approchez ici d'une certaine ligne rouge. Et nous pensons qu'il faut être créatif. Nous avons fait quelques années l'exercice de la VUE rétrospective qui a été extrêmement concluant pour tout le monde. Nous pensons que les interdits sont faits pour être transcendés. Et c'est la tendance naturelle de l'Homo sapiens. L'interdit n'est pas une solution. Nous pensons qu'il faudrait interroger la VUE dans une dimension prospective. Concrètement, cela signifie que les États partis ont le droit et le devoir de connaître les ressources de leur terroir et d'envisager le cas échéant, leur mise en valeur dans le respect de la VUE. Nous devons être logiques avec nous-mêmes. Des dizaines de sites témoins de l'histoire industrielle de l'humanité, mines, métallurgie, installations industrielles, aménagements fluviaux et hydrauliques, ont déjà été inscrits sur la liste et le seront les années à venir. Nous autres pays en développement, devons-nous faire l'impasse dans l'aménagement de nos terroirs? Bien évidemment que non. Si objectivement, vous pensez ou nous pensons que l'aspiration au développement est un droit humain et qu'il est d'ailleurs la première des valeurs universelles exceptionnelles, alors levons les interdits afin que nous ayons l'audace de penser une valeur universelle prospective qui ferait de notre convention un organisme dynamique et éviter le cul de sac qui pourrait conduire à sa fossilisation, pour parler comme les évolutionnistes. Merci.
Thank you, Senegal. I now give the floor to India, followed by Vietnam. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. Indian delegation would like to concur with the observations made by the distinguished delegates from Philippines, Finland, and Colombia. In addition, India would like to endorse the policy document for the integration of sustainable development perspective into the processes of World Heritage Convention. We believe that once this has been adopted, we would like to take it further to propose specific changes in the operational guidelines as has been requested by Finland, Philippines, and Colombia, and also to undertake a range of capacity building initiatives. We believe that the policy guidelines are imperative to enable inclusive sustainable development to be integrated into the World Heritage Convention, both for natural as well as cultural sites. This will also be very important to enable local communities to better engage with the World Heritage property. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, India. We now have Vietnam, followed by Philippines. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Vietnam, as a responsible member of the committee, is delighted to sponsor the first ever workshop in Vietnam that bring together all the experts, advisory bodies, representatives, and site managers in order to discuss the possibility to link the two concepts, World Heritage Convention and sustainable development. We believe that this is a very important exercise. As we often say today, that sustainable development is very important. We often say today that culture is driving force for sustainable development. And we also often say that heritage site is very important under culture. So there should be a link between these two concepts. That's why together with the respective consultative bodies, Vietnam has hosted for the first time a workshop in order to explore how we can incorporate the various components of sustainable development into the mainstreams of our convention to protect the World Heritage sites. We understand that the fact that we have 1,000 sites have contributed tremendously to sustainable development, and each site can serve as a model for sustainable development. So a lot of discussion a lot of suggestions have come out of these two workshops, and we hope that that will be incorporated in the document paper that will be brought to your attention. And we think that we need to discuss that, and perhaps in the future, those recommendations can be of some relevance and needed for potential change in our guidelines. That's why Vietnam has no objection with any amendments to the current decision draft. But I just want to bring to your attention some clarification that we at the moment is still at the very early stage of the discussion and exploring to how to link these two concepts together. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vietnam. I now hand over the floor to Philippines, followed by Finland. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We appreciate the report and extensive work that has been undertaken with respect to this topic. We fully share the vision of the World Heritage, and it must not only contribute to sustainable development, but be a dynamic driver of it. It is very timely for the committee to take this issue up, as we all look forward to the adoption of the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda later this year. We thank the states parties that provided financial support so that the experts could prepare the draft policy annexed to the report. In fact, the draft policy contains very important reflections for all state parties to consider. World Heritage sites certainly have impacts on inclusive, sustainable development, the enjoyment of human rights, peace and security, among others. We also note that there is a standalone target related to the protection of cultural and natural heritage in the draft Sustainable Development Goal, exactly which is Goal 11.4. It states to strengthen efforts to protect, safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. Having said this, considering that we do not have, or we did not have the opportunity to engage in an in-depth discussion on the draft policy, it may be useful to collate the comments of states parties and take them into account in the revision of the policy document before transmitting it to the General Assembly. There should be sufficient time for substantive intergovernmental inputs, since states parties will ultimately ask to implement the draft policy. Thus, the reason for our amendments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. I now hand over to the Ambassador of Finland, followed by Germany. Finland, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. I'm not the ambassador, but another expert. Finland welcomes indeed the draft policy paper. It offers useful guidance in discovering the multifaceted connection between world heritage and sustainable development. For example, the human rights perspective, as well as the peace and security dimension, are highly welcome. However, we consider that in some areas the strategy goes somewhat perhaps beyond the original purpose of the World Heritage Convention, which is and should remain the conservation of the properties. Therefore, we would welcome, as suggested in the document, that the Sustainable Development Guidelines would be integrated within the future overall policy guidelines. And in the process of doing so, more concrete and more focused guidance should be elaborated, focusing on aspects of highest relevance for the conservation of properties. These could be, for example, sustainable tourism management, conservation of properties after conflict situations, and enhancing the role of local communities. Therefore, potential revisions to the operational guidelines should wait until we have a better understanding what this future overall policy guidelines will mean in practice. Under a current difficult financial and human resources situation at the Secretariat, we do not consider that we should overburden the Secretariat at this stage with requesting elaboration of proposals for capacity building initiatives as called for in the paragraph 8 of the draft resolution. And to this end, we have the amendments that we propose. And finally, I want to just say that Finland has also noted with great pleasure the content of the declaration of the Young Experts Forum on Sustainable Management of World Heritage Sites that was presented to us in this room yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland. Over to you, Germany, followed by Turkey. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany fully supports the document presented to the committee. Concerning the draft decision, Germany supports the amendments proposed by the Philippines and Finland, as well as the two last amendments proposed by Colombia. In addition to this, we would like to speak to the content of the policy document on 2 points. First, paragraph 14 on protecting biological and cultural diversity and ecosystem benefits. In relation to this, we would like to highlight, as it was mentioned by OCN, the global study on benefits, which contains this analysis, which was mentioned. And we think, and this could be noted maybe in a footnote, the guidance given in this document can help for implementing this paragraph 14 of this policy document. Concerning footnote 18, we would like to remind that this footnote refers to recent statements of the Committee on the non-compatibility of extractive industry and World Heritage properties and is an important guidance to be noted here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Germany. Over to you, Turkey, followed by Serbia. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We welcome the exercise to integrate sustainable development into the World Heritage Convention processes, as heritage itself is a driver for development. However, considering different development levels, legislative and economic systems of state parties, and great variety of World Heritage sites, the implementation of some provisions of the policy document in every World Heritage sites seem to be difficult to implement. That's the reason why we would like to have the opportunity to reflect our comments on the policy document. And that's why we fully support the amendment proposal made by the Philippines. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Turkey. Over to Serbia now. Serbia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I would like to thank the Secretariat for a very comprehensive report, and as stressed by previous speaker, we would fully support draft policy for the integration of the sustainable development perspective. Having been the member of both UN Working Group on Sustainable Development and Financing of Sustainable Development, I want to stress our disappointment, in fact, that the culture hasn't been listed as a separate sustainable development goals, though it was mentioned in several of targets referring to cities, growth and employment through tourism. What we would try at least until the very end, and there are only 2 meetings before the post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals be adopted in September. And in our future work, we would like to see that safeguarding of cultural and natural heritage should be further discussed in the framework of dedicated targets under objective related to the environmental sustainability, ecosystem and biodiversity, sustainable agriculture and food security. Cultural heritage and historic cities are strategic assets for local economic development. With targeted investment and effective partnership between the public and private sector, it has been shown that these assets can contribute to job creation, notable for the poorest, and economic growth, while doing so in an inclusive manner. The recognition of heritage and promotion and respect of cultural diversity within a human rights-based approach are key elements in reconciliation and peace-building processes and recreating social links in post-crisis and post-disaster responses with communities and between communities. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Serbia. From our list up here, we do not seem to have any other World Heritage Committee members who wish to take the floor. So, as per procedure, I will now throw open the floor to the states parties observers, any of you who might wish to take the floor at this stage. None, perhaps. Well, there do not appear to be any. And in that case, I will now throw the floor open to the observers. I can see a hand up in the balcony. Can we give the floor to you? I would request you to identify yourself as you take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this working? Can you hear? Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to comment on this agenda item. This intervention is on behalf of the Zoological Society of London and the Wildlife Conservation Society. We welcome the initiative to develop a strategy that supports sustainable development efforts that benefit local communities while not compromising the conservation of the outstanding universal value of World Heritage Sites. We express support for the provision contained in Draft Decision 39-5D, paragraph 6, requesting the World Heritage Centre, in consultation with the advisory bodies, to revise the policy document by incorporating views expressed at the 39th session, and would like to submit for consideration by the committee 2 written statements from members of the African Natural World Heritage Site Support Network relating to this agenda point. One entitled Joint ANWH-SSN Statement on No-Go and No-Impact Measures for Extractive Activities in Natural and Mixed World Heritage Sites, and the other entitled Joint Natural World Heritage NGO Statement to the 39th session of the World Heritage Committee. These will be available outside. When revising the document, we would like to suggest the World Heritage Centre consider including a revision in the draft policy document to elevate footnote 18, which relates to paragraph 23, to the main text. This important footnote refers to the World Heritage Committee's decision 37-7, urging all states parties to the Convention and leading industry stakeholders to respect the no-go commitment by not permitting extractive activities within World Heritage properties and by making every effort to ensure that extractive companies located in their territory cause no damage to World Heritage properties, in line with Article 6 of the Convention. We believe this is a fundamental requirement for sustainable development and the conservation of the outstanding universal value of World Heritage sites, taking the precautionary principle fully into account, and should thus have prominence within this policy document. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any others? I can see one more. With a similar request, may you please identify yourself before you take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Oliver Loda, and I'm a member and a Vice Chair of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. The Permanent Forum is an advisory body to the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, that provides expert advice on indigenous issues to the UN system. In its work, the Permanent Forum is guided by the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The Permanent Forum attaches great importance to the work of the World Heritage Committee. Expert members of our forum have participated in past sessions of the committee, and the Permanent Forum has made a number of recommendations on the implementation of the World Heritage Convention. The Permanent Forum welcomes the proposed new policy for integrating sustainable development perspective into the Convention. The proposed policy correctly notes that recognizing rights and fully involving indigenous peoples in line with international standards such as the UN Declaration is at the heart of sustainable development. However, the effectiveness of the proposed policy will depend on the introduction of specific operational procedures that not only encourage but actually require states parties to comply with international standards regarding the rights of indigenous peoples. The Permanent Forum welcomes discussions about the introduction of provisions of free, prior and informed consent into the operational guidelines. However, the language submitted for this session is insufficient primarily because it fails to create binding obligations for states, nor does it distinguish between indigenous peoples as rights holders and other groups like local NGOs as stakeholders. Now, what is needed is a robust procedure ensuring that indigenous peoples' rights under international law are respected, that indigenous peoples are fully and effectively involved in nomination processes, and that their free, prior, and informed consent is obtained before sites on their lands are inscribed on the World Heritage List, and similar mechanisms are needed for management of already inscribed sites. Therefore, the Permanent Forum proposes that in the process of translating principles of the proposed Sustainable Development Policy into operational procedures, the World Heritage Center ensures full and effective participation of indigenous peoples in order to ensure that the revised operational guidelines are in line with the UN Declaration. The Permanent Forum remains available to assist and collaborate with the World Heritage Committee, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. From the balcony to my right, I can see Mali. You have the floor, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais juste dire deux mots sur cette lancinante question de corrélation entre développement et conservation. On est tous d'accord que conservation et développement sont liés. Mais on ne se pose pas de problème. Pourquoi, si on prend les pays en voie de développement, entre guillemets, les pays africains que je connais, pourquoi autant de sites sur la liste du patrimoine en péril? Ce n'est pas uniquement à cause de la mauvaise gestion, mais c'est à cause du niveau de développement. Les États n'ont pas les moyens d'investir autant qu'il y a des priorités qu'on dégage toujours. Et malheureusement, le patrimoine, la culture est toujours en marche. Même l'environnement, la gestion de l'environnement pose problème. Et en Afrique, bien avant, enfin, à une certaine période, l'homme a toujours prélevé, la gestion et la conservation allaient de pair. On prélevait toujours ce dont on a besoin pour gérer et pour survivre, entre guillemets. Mais je crois que tant qu'on ne met pas ensemble le programme de développement, c'est-à-dire mettre le programme de développement comme une opportunité de conserver les sites, surtout les sites du patrimoine mondial, le plan va toujours demeurer. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mali. Those were the questions. And now for some of the answers. May I turn to Mr. Bokardi? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I think I've taken note of several comments. I'd like to make one specific comment, if I may, on one of the proposed amendments, unless you want to do this later on. In particular, it was the amendment proposed by Finland on paragraph 9, I think. If we could just scroll down. Yes. It reads, requests the World Heritage Center along with the advisory bodies to elaborate, once the overall policy guidelines is adopted by the General Assembly, proposals for specific changes to the operational guidelines that would be required to translate the principles of the, and I would say here, policy document. I mean, this policy on sustainable development. This is what we want to translate into actual operational procedures. Otherwise, this paragraph, as it is drafted here, perhaps would relate more to the item on the policy guidelines, which will come later in the course of the session. This is a suggestion that I wanted to put to the colleagues from Finland for their consideration. Otherwise, as for the other suggestions on how to strengthen the consultative process, I think there will be no problem. I would like also to mention that a member of the Permanent Forum of Indigenous Peoples has been indeed involved in the process of formulating this at all stages, so this consultation has taken place. This is all, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bokardi. And now for draft decision 39-COM, if there are no further comments. Any further comments? If there are none, as would appear to be the case, I would propose that we move to draft decision 39-COM 5D to a para-by-para examination of the draft decision. And may I suggest that where there is no disagreement, we can move through those paras very quickly and move more slowly through the paragraphs where amendments have been suggested from the floor. So could we start from the beginning? Para 1 seems to be fine. 2, Likewise, 3, 4, 5. Now we come to the 5, that is the amended version in blue, proposal of Philippines. Can we take this as adopted, the new para 5 proposed by Philippines? I see no disagreement, so I will gavel that very quickly. We move on to paragraph 6 with a slight amendment by the Philippines. It is in front of you on your screens. Again, I do not see any disagreement, so I will move to gavel that also. Para 7, no changes suggested from the floor. Paragraph 8, amendments again from Finland. Any comments? Para 8 seems to meet with everyone's favor, so I will move to gavel that as well, with your permission. Para 9, amendments suggested by Finland. No comments again, so we move to gavel that as well. Yes, I'm sorry, please, Mr. Bukhardi.
Sorry, just earlier now, I had suggested that the way the paragraph 9 is framed could be improved by replacing the word which is highlighted in light blue, guidelines, with document. Because what I think the intention is to make sure that this policy document is translated into operational procedures only once the operational guidelines have been adopted by the General Assembly of the States Parties. By the way, the word parties is missing there. So I would like to suggest for the consideration of the committee that in the second last line, the word guidelines be replaced by document, unless I misunderstood the intention of this paragraph. So perhaps Finland could comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bukhardi. I'll give the floor to Finland to clarify that doubt. Finland, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Yes, the suggestion is quite okay by us. Of course, it's almost the same thing. Is it policy guidelines or policy document? As our intention is that the policy document will be part of the policy guidelines anyway. But the policy document is totally okay by us.
Thank you, Finland. So we will replace the word in para 9 with the word document. Is that right? Okay. Everyone in agreement? And I move to gavel that, therefore. Gavelled. Moving on to paragraph, no, 9 again. Yeah, paragraph 9, amendments suggested by Colombia. Any comments on the Colombian formulation? I do not see any comments, which leads me to believe that we should quickly gavel this one as well. So, gavelled. Moving on next to the succeeding paragraphs, I do not see any change in 10, but in 11, there are some amendments that have been proposed from Colombia again, and the floor is yours. Any comments on the Colombian proposals in para 11? There do not appear to be any comments. Mr. Bukhardi has some comments. I'll give the floor to him.
I'm really sorry. I'd like to bring you back to the Colombian amendment to paragraph 9, if it is possible to scroll up a little for a second. Yes. Now, the problem with this is that it maintains the wording calls on states parties to contribute financially to this end. However, this end referred to a previous text that had been deleted by the amendment by Finland. So now it is somewhat not understandable. Sorry. because what the contributions were supposed to do is to support capacity building, and unless we could limit the contribution to the translating the principles into proposal for changes to the operational guidelines, I think this would be also something that would need support, financial support. So if that is the case, we could leave it as it is. Thank you.
Okay, from what I understand, we leave the proposal as it is. So we move onward. We had moved to paragraph 11. Can we scroll down? Yes, paragraph 11 as amended. The amendments in blue as amended by Colombia. Any comments? I do not believe I see any comments, so we should move to gavel that as well. We now move on to paragraph 12 and Colombian amendments again to paragraph 12. No further comments. So paragraph 12 is also gavelled. 13, no changes suggested in paragraph 13. Can we move further? Okay, so I think we've come to the end of the draft decision. If there are no further comments, I declare draft decision 39-5D adopted as amended. Thank you very much. Item 6. We will now move on to item 6 of our agenda, follow-up to the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy and Progress Report on the World Heritage-related Category 2 centers. The relevant working document is document 6. Considering their close links, these two reports are presented together within the same document. I would now like to invite Ms. Isabel Anatole Gabriel from the World Heritage Center to briefly present this document. Please, Ms. Anatole Gabriel, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. J'introduirai donc très rapidement ce document. C'est un document, un rapport de suivi de mise en œuvre de la stratégie du patrimoine mondial pour le renforcement des capacités qui a été adoptée en 2011 lors de la 35e session du Comité du patrimoine mondial. Comme vous avez pu le constater, le renforcement des capacités est mentionné à de nombreuses reprises dans les documents de la 39e session, notamment dans le document 5A, document 5B et 5D que nous venons d'examiner. Le document 6 doit donc être lu de manière transversale et en complément d'autres documents faisant rapport. Je rappelle aussi que la stratégie pour le renforcement des capacités fait partie d'un des 5 objectifs stratégiques adoptés lors de la 34e session du comité en 2010. J'en viens à la structure de ce document. Le document a été élaboré conjointement par l'ICROM, le Centre du patrimoine mondial, ainsi que la nouvelle plateforme de services communs des conventions, CCS, qui coordonne l'action des centres de catégorie 2. Le document se compose de 3 parties, 2 parties principales. La première partie constitue le suivi de la stratégie de renforcement des capacités élaborée par l'ICROM et l'UICN, qui correspond à la seconde phase du programme initié en 2013. La sous-partie A de cette première partie rend compte des activités conduites par l'ICROM et la sous-partie B des activités conduites par le Centre du patrimoine mondial, en particulier ses unités régionales, notamment dans le cadre des stratégies régionales de renforcement des capacités. La partie 2 fait rapport des activités des centres de catégorie 2. À titre d'information complémentaire, je souhaite souligner que les rapports pour 2015 de chacun des centres de catégorie 2 sont disponibles et téléchargeables sur le site web du Centre du patrimoine mondial, dont vous avez l'adresse web à l'écran. Enfin, je souhaite apporter à la connaissance des membres du comité qu'en ce qui concerne la réunion de coordination des centres de catégorie 2, qui est mentionnée dans un des derniers paragraphes, l'Inde s'est proposée pour accueillir la prochaine réunion de coordination des centres de catégorie 2. Le document présente en 3e et dernière partie le projet de décision. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much for that crisp presentation. I now would like to give the floor to the representative of ICROM for what concerns the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. Mr. King, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to report to the committee on the progress of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. As you will recall, the World Heritage Capacity Building Program was developed in 2012 and was based on the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy approved by the committee in 2011. The program has been generously funded by the government of Switzerland. The following are some of the key outcomes that I can report to you at this time. As I already reported to you last year, work has continued on the translation of some of the key capacity building documents into a number of languages. All of the World Heritage Resource Manuals are now available online in English, French, and Spanish, with several of the volumes also available in Arabic, Portuguese, and Russian. And we are in the process right now of finalizing the resource manual on managing natural heritage sites in Russian at this moment, and it should be getting online shortly. I'm also happy to report that printed versions of the Managing Cultural Heritage volume are now available in both English and French. In addition, the guidance documents on heritage impact assessment and environmental impact assessment, developed respectively by ICOMOS for the first one and IUCN for the second, are now available also in multiple languages. Again, at least French, Spanish, and English, and again, I believe also Arabic. I'm also happy to report that the newest version of the capacity building newsletter, which is pictured on the screen behind me, is about to be put online on the ECROM website. This version that you see here is in English, but again, we will have French and Spanish versions also available as soon as the translation and the layout are finalized. In regard to training, there have been a variety of activities that have been carried out by ECROM and our partners. In particular, the second course on heritage impact assessment was carried out in October 2014 in Dujiangyang, China, in partnership with WITTRAP, the Category 2 center located in Shanghai in China. The course gave 16 participants from around the world an overview of the heritage impact assessment process and included hands-on work on a case study site. While the focus of this course was on cultural heritage, a resource person from IUCN was invited to the course to present aspects related to environmental impact assessment processes and strategic environmental assessment. This points out one of the key themes that we've been working on with IUCN, and that is the development of capacity building, which brings out the interlinkages between culture and nature. I reported to you last year that we were developing a course along those lines, and a first module was carried out in 2014 as part of ECROM's Build Heritage course. I'm happy to report that a new course will be taking place in October at ECROM on promoting people-centered approaches, engaging communities in conservation of nature and culture. Additional courses will hopefully be carried out starting in 2016. In regard to strengthening the network of the advisory bodies, no new workshops took place since the 38th session of the committee, but funds were used to allow participants of past workshops to take part as second experts on a number of evaluation and reactive monitoring missions in order to continue to increase their capacity. It is hoped that we will be able to continue to carry out additional workshops and also to continue to allow for people who've had training in these workshops to take part in reactive monitoring and evaluation missions. Last year, we reported that a capacity building guidance document was being prepared to help states parties develop their own capacity building strategies. This document is still in development, and it is expected to be completed before the end of the year. And to respond to one of the questions earlier from the Philippines, we are also trying to develop more online resources with World Heritage information. We've developed an overall plan for developing PowerPoints and other self-learning tools to provide more information on the World Heritage Convention. And now we are in the process where we need to start implementing that. We have plans, but we need to start moving into the implementation. As mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, our ability to move forward with capacity building activities has depended very much on the generous contributions of the Swiss government, and we thank them very much for that. We are currently in discussion with the Nordic countries about the possibility of their joining together to continue with capacity building activities, and in particular on a variety of themes related, again, to the interlinkages between culture and nature. IUCN and ICROM look forward to continuing this dialogue with the Nordic countries about support for capacity building, and would be pleased if other countries would be willing to join in order for us to be able to expand our own capacity, to deliver capacity to you, the states parties. At the regional level, it is also important to mention the work of the World Heritage Center and the Category 2 centers. I would in particular like to point out the work of WITRAP in Asia, the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage in the Arab States, and the Africa World Heritage Fund in Sub-Saharan Africa, towards developing regional strategies based on the results of the periodic reporting, and also in implementing regional capacity building activities. In Latin America, the World Heritage Center and the states parties are now finalizing action plans which take into account the periodic reporting process and are meant to help develop capacity in the future. And of course, for Europe, the final periodic reporting meeting just took place in Finland in December of 2014. So we are looking forward to developing with our European states parties capacity building strategies as necessary. Other information on capacity building activities can be found in document 6. In regard to the Category 2 centers, I wanted to highlight the good relationships that have been developed between all the advisory bodies and some of the Category 2 centers. The course that I already mentioned, the Heritage Impact Assessment course that we did with WITRAP in Shanghai, is one of the examples of that good relationship. But we also have ongoing partnerships with the Africa World Heritage Fund, and I would also like to highlight the links that IUCN and ICROM have with the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage. IUCN has seconded Haifa Abdul Halim, who is sitting on my left, to ARC-WH to work on a program of capacity building for natural heritage in the Arab States region. And this shows, I think, a very good synergy between the advisory bodies and the Category 2 centers. In ICROM's case, there's a strong working relationship between ARC-WH and our own Athar Center, which is located in Sharjah. I think these kinds of relationships and synergies, I would use that word, I think are very important, and we would look forward to developing them also with other Category 2 centers. Just to conclude, to say that in your document also you'll see that there are a number of reviews that have been carried out of existing Category 2 centers, and as I said, information can be found in the document. Finally, while it was unfortunate that in the past, this past year, it was not possible to hold a joint Category 2 center meeting, as had been done in the past in Oslo and Shanghai. You've heard already a report from the Secretariat that there may be an offer coming from India on that, so that would be a very positive development. And I would also point out that there will be an informal meeting of Category 2 centers here as part of this meeting on Friday in the evening, I believe. I think at 6 o'clock or 6:30. So with those few remarks, Madam Chairman, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I would like to thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Mr. King, for that impressive scorecard. Dear colleagues, I would like to remind you that we are invited to adopt the draft decision 39-6 included in part 3 of the document that has been presented to you. But before that, if there are any World Heritage Committee members who might wish to take the floor to make their observations and suggestions, the floor is now yours. I can see that Finland has already raised the flag. Finland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. I will speak on the Category 2 institutes. It is necessary that all institutes, and not only those concerning cultural heritage, but all institutes are functional, effective, and that they contribute both to the planning and implementation of UNESCO's program cycles. UNESCO's Integrated Comprehensive Strategy for Category 2 institutes from 2013 offers good guidelines to this end. At the moment, as we heard, Norway continues to work for the possible establishment of a new Category 2 Center for the implementation of the World Heritage Convention, more specifically dedicated to the implementation of the capacity building strategy. The overall aim is to improve the conservation and management practices for culture and natural heritage through an integrated and holistic approach. The content is being developed in close cooperation with IUCN and ICROM. A Nordic basis for the center is again a priority, and Finland, Denmark, Iceland and Sweden have taken part in discussions. A possible new center will at the earliest be presented to the General Conference of UNESCO in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finland. We have India now, followed by Colombia. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thanks for providing an opportunity to intervene on this important issue. India would like to compliment the two advisory bodies for maintaining good synergies with the C2Cs. The state party is also grateful to the UNESCO Executive Board for its decision to establish the world's first C2C on natural world heritage in India. As has been pointed out in the paper, the formal agreement between UNESCO and Government of India is to be signed shortly. But I'm happy to say that our C2C has completed the recruitment processes for engaging competent professionals and has developed extensive plans for building capacity of resource managers in the Asia-Pacific region. Thank you.
Thank you, India. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Colombia quiere resaltar el rol de los centros categoría 2 en la construcción de capacidades para la gestión del patrimonio mundial y sus desafíos mediante la realización de reuniones de entrenamiento, de manuales específicos como el de manejo de riesgo, capacitando profesionales que replican lo aprendido en cada país mediante políticas e instrumentos concretos y señalando la experiencia que aporta cada centro en acciones específicas, como la evaluación de impactos o la gestión del patrimonio, temas que tienen elementos en común en las diferentes regiones. Celebra también la amplia convocatoria de estos cursos con la participación del ICROM, lo que lleva a un mayor acceso y posterior impacto positivo. Consideramos que en la medida en que haya una mayor capacidad técnica en las regiones, ello puede ser considerado por los órganos asesores tanto en el mejoramiento del diálogo con los estados parte como en las posibilidades que significa el contar con un número cada vez mayor de personas capacitadas en cada región y lo que ello podría contribuir a la necesidad de recursos financieros para la implementación de la convención. Finalmente, queremos resaltar el rol y el avance del Centro Lucio Costa en los países de su influencia, países de lengua portuguesa y española de América del Sur y países de lengua portuguesa de África y Asia. Y por ello, Colombia ha adherido a este centro con Mozambique, Perú, Uruguay, Chile y Ecuador. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Colombia. Are there any other World Heritage Committee members who wish to take the floor? There appear to be none, so I will now move on to the States Parties observers. If there are none in this category as well, to the observers. There appear to be none here too. I will now ask the rapporteur if he has received amendments on the draft decision 39.6 and if he has received any amendments on the draft decision 39.6. Mr. Rapporteur.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, no amendments were received, but we have a precision to make on paragraph 2 of this item. So paragraph 2 would be further precised, and it becomes recalling decisions 36.6, 36.9b, 37.5e, 37.6, and 38.6 adopted at its 36th session that took place in St. Petersburg in 2012, 37th session in Phnom Penh 2013, and 38th session in Doha 2014 sessions respectively. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you to our rapporteur. As he has mentioned, there is a slight variation to paragraph 2. That apart, there do not seem to be any further amendments to 39.6. Can I take it that there is consensus within this room for us to adopt draft decision 39.6. There does not appear to be any comment or suggestion, and therefore, dear colleagues, after this debate, this committee will now move on to adopt draft decision 39.6, included in part 3 of the document that has been presented to you as amended in paragraph 2. And if you all agree, I will move now to gavel this. Thank you. It is so decided. Agenda item 6 is closed. Dear colleagues, from these draft decisions, we will now move to the meeting of chairpersons of UNESCO's culture conventions. Intended to strengthen cooperation and develop synergies among the culture conventions, this meeting is scheduled to take place in 10 minutes in this room. However, I would request you to remain seated to attend this special event, which will, as I said, start in about 10 minutes. In the interim, the Secretariat has some important announcements to make. I will now hand over the floor to the Secretariat. Thank you.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Donc une série d'annonces, d'informations à communiquer. La première qui concerne la réunion du groupe Afrique qui aura lieu demain matin entre 8h et 8h30 dans la salle P27, donc au 2e étage de ce bâtiment. Another announcement which concerns to the attention of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Group at UNESCO. The member states of this group are kindly invited to attend a group's meeting to be held on Tuesday, 30 June at 2 p.m. in the same room, room 27. Another announcement for the Arab group at UNESCO. Member states of the Arab group at UNESCO are kindly invited to attend the group's meeting to be held on Tuesday, 30 June, but at 2:30 p.m. in room 2.7. So, to be clear, the first meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in room 2.7, Tuesday, 30 June at 2 p.m., to be followed by a meeting of the Arab group at UNESCO, the same room tomorrow, Tuesday, 30 June at 2:30 p.m. Thank you, Mrs. Chairperson.
Thank you. A little bit of wait, colleagues, and we should move on to the next item. Thank you.